Right, well, hello there. Hopefully everything is working just as required, and welcome along to another live shed chat here with me, Jennifer Kirk, wearing my silly kitty ears just to show myself off as being fun and hip and groovy. And today, what I was really thinking about doing is I was quite keen to do a bit of a discussion on the subject of, let me just get my notes up, the subject of scratch building versus ready to run. And ostensibly, the idea behind this is discussing, some people suggest, you should scratch build everything, and that is a bit of an extreme. And then other people, they advocate that buying stuff from a model shop is fine, and indeed the manufacturers, Scaledale, Scenecraft, people like that, produce some really great ready to plant buildings and stuff. So clearly there's a big demand for that kind of thing. And if it wasn't considered okay by the community at large, then they wouldn't sell, but they do. And I'm always really a firm advocate of, at the end of the day, this is supposed to be fun. It's a hobby. It's for enjoyment. We don't do these things just for the giggles of it all. So why shouldn't we buy things that you can just plant on the layout, and they will speed you along to a finished layout. It's a hobby. It's supposed to be fun. And if there's an activity in layout building which you don't find fun, and a lot of people, I hear it time and time again, people saying that ballasting is something that they despise, ballasting, and I personally don't mind it, but it's when you get products which can kind of sledgehammer through things like that, make it easier, make it more accessible, I think that it can only enhance the hobby. And the bottom line is, if you're not enjoying doing a particular task, don't do it. Find a way around it. Pay somebody else to do it if you need to. There is nothing that really detracts from you in doing that in this hobby. If you were into any other hobby, like I'm trying to think, classic cars, you wouldn't make a rod for your back by painstakingly rebuilding from scratch yourself a gearbox, say, if you really didn't gel with that kind of thing. You'd pay somebody else to do it. And so why shouldn't model railways be any different in that respect? I think that it's unfortunately online in a lot of the fora, perhaps not all, but some of the fora, there are people who kind of belittle other people in the hobby who will buy ready to plant buildings, or will pay somebody to build their baseboards, or will use ready-made track. I mean, most of us use the Pico or the Tillig or the Fleischmann track. There's nothing wrong with that, but other people advocate, oh no, you must build these things from scratch, and there is no right and wrong in this hobby. But let's have a look. Let's see, who have we got in there? We've got Warrington Train Spotter 2778. Good evening to you. Not doing too bad. I've been drinking Coke. We finished dry January. I did manage dry January, and I had myself a little tot of sherry, actually, at 1 minute past midnight on what was then the 1st of February. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't enjoy it. It tasted horrible after a month off alcohol. But I have persevered, and I've had a couple of beers and a couple of ciders. Not all at once, obviously. Robert Cooney, do you scratch build trains? It's one of those. I scratch build the things that I enjoy scratch building, and the things that I don't enjoy, I find ways round. So, for example, on my layouts, the things that I really hate building more than anything else are buildings. I don't scratch build buildings. I kit bash the heck out of things like, just give me a moment, I've just realised I haven't put the light on. Let's just, near you. There we go. That'll warm up a bit. So there we go. You can see me with in all my glory. Where were we? Oh yes. I've forgotten what I was talking about. But oh yes. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, on my layout, buildings are something that I really, really despise building. Always have done. I'm not very good at it. Certainly not scratch building. And I've seen people who make some amazing buildings, and I'm jealous in some respects. You know, that these people can craft these brilliant masterpieces. But I don't enjoy doing it. I've tried scratch building buildings, and it's like having teeth pulled out. So I decided a long time ago that the little shortcut that I use is I take things like Super Quick and Metcalf kits, you know, the pre-printed, pre-punched card kits, but I don't build them necessarily as per the instructions. I kit bash them, for want of a better word. And for me, that's my way of making that aspect of the hobby enjoyable. So I have a lot of buildings, like for example the main station building on the layout in the shed. That is something that let's just bring up. You can see, always just at the point where the intro comes in. But the main station building on my layout in the shed is actually kit bashed from 3 Super Quick B35 market houses. And I'll be honest with you, as a kit, the B35, you just caught a glimpse of it there in the top right hand corner. The B35 kit is pretty useless on its own, but what I found is it's really, really good for kind of cutting and shutting, and I made a reasonable representation of the type of station building that Bolton Trinity Street had. And you see there the signal box that's just been and gone in view. That's kit bashed out of 2 Metcalf signal boxes, and that's just how I do it, and I find that pleasing and acceptable for me. And you know, there you see the station building. That's just 3 of the market houses, just all adapted. And you know, that's how I get through that particular aspect. But when it comes to ballasting, I actually quite enjoy it. But I know that a lot of people find ballasting the most mind-numbingly boring thing to do. And in all honesty, I find it quite relaxing, so I'm quite happy to do it. But there are products on the garden, products on the market that make ballasting a lot easier. I've seen, it's like a little perspex thing. It's like a box that you preload with ballast. You put it on your track and then drag it along, and it kind of smooths out the ballast nice and neatly, and for a lot of people, perfect. I've also seen stuff where you kind of pre-mix this ballast and almost paint it on. I've seen pre-ballasted track underlay, all these different things. And I personally say, you know, go for it. If that's something that you despise doing, and there is a way of buying a product that makes that part of the hobby more enjoyable, then you shouldn't feel any shame whatsoever in doing that, and nor should anybody have a go at you for doing that. The other thing as well, which I really don't enjoy doing, is building rolling stock and locomotives. Rolling stock and locomotives, pretty much everything that I own is ready to run out of the box, and I know that that's something which does get poo-pooed a lot in certain aspects of the community. And again, I think it's really wrong. I don't enjoy building kits of wagons, coaches, locomotives, mostly because the actual paint finish on the end of it, I'm just not, I don't feel I'm good enough to make these things and to paint them. I have tried doing it in the past with wagon kits, and I'll be honest with you, the end results I just never felt happy with. You know, I'll happily build bridges. Bridges is something that I love building from scratch, and you're probably just about to see, oh actually it's not going to show you the bridge there, but that bridge there, the old Orlando Street Bridge from Bolton, I quite happily spend hours cutting little pieces of plasticard to build a bridge. And you're about to see possibly the footbridge. That footbridge is kit bashed from the Daypole signal gantries, and you can see the top right there, that's a completely scratch built bridge. The one on the top left is scratch built as well. And these are just, I enjoy doing that. But people who don't enjoy doing that aspect of the hobby, you can buy ready-made bridge girders, even up to full bridges. I've seen some wonderful ones actually from Backman Scene Craft, and they're quite expensive, but they get the job done. And it's more than possible to actually buy in all the buildings, the signals. Daypole do some motorised signals which look really good, and build up a pretty decent model railway. If for you the objective is to have a good looking model railway to run trains within, then go for it. I've heard some people deride it as checkbook modelling, but I think that that's a very unfair term, because what it boils down to, again, we come right back to the fact that this hobby is supposed to be fun. And if you don't enjoy a particular task associated with building a model railway, then why not contract it out? Why not buy in a product that gets the job done without having to go through a process that you don't enjoy doing? Some people like the challenge. I'd like to think that I'm well and truly in the sort of the centre ground. I can build certain things from scratch. A lot of what you're seeing on the screen, there's a lot of individuality going on there. But at the same token, the locomotives and the rolling stock are all ready to run straight out of a box. Just I'm a box opener when it comes to that kind of thing. I really couldn't be bothered building a kit of, say, that locomotive, the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway, Atlantic there, but quite enjoy it running through a landscape which I have built. All those station platforms, they're made from balsa wood card, and I use super quick building papers. And actually doing, I said before I don't like building buildings, but architectural features, some architectural features I don't mind, like retaining walls. All the retaining walls are scratch built out of card and balsa wood. And again, the signals that you're seeing there, they're all made up from ratio kits. Not necessarily all built from the way that the instructions give you a clue in the ratio kits. But what I did was I looked at real signals and tried to build up a mimic of the real signals. So you can see the bottom right there. It's a rendition of a signal gantry that was at the real Bolton Trinity Street up until the early 1980s, and I've tried to give a representation of what was there, and that is just bashed together out of all of the bits and pieces that were in the ratio kits, and that works for me. But anyway, let's have a look. Robert Cooney loves scratch building. Yeah, some people do. Some people do. There's nothing wrong with that. Philip Page, good evening, everyone. Good evening to you. Andrew Johnson, it's my railway, and I'll scratch build everything. I wouldn't get, and if I had to scratch build everything, I wouldn't get anything done. However, I always admire something where someone has taken the time to scratch build something. Yeah, completely agree with you. And I know a gentleman, Paul Tyre, who he's a professional model maker, and he lives up in Orkney, and he makes models for a living. And the stuff that he produces, and he just sort of like throws it together. It's like, oh, I had an hour to kill, so I'll make this model, and they're just incredible, absolutely incredible. And this is probably going to get weird actually, because you're seeing a picture of me talking that's been muted on a video. But what I wanted to show you here is another area of building stuff. Let's just see if I can find. Yeah, there we go. This is Grove Street Yard. It's just, I'll get back to Paul Tyre in a moment. I'm going to pause that there. And another aspect that people despise, well, I say people, some people despise doing, is electrical wiring and baseboard construction. What you're seeing there paused on the screen is the underside of Grove Street Yard. It's an aspect of model railways that's often quite difficult to get to see, because when you go to an exhibition, you never get to see the underside of these things. So what you're seeing there is something that I built myself. In the actual woodwork was done, dusted inside of 24 hours for all of that, ready to start laying tracks, thus showing that it doesn't have to be an epic sort of what's the word I'm looking for, an epic quest of a task. And the way that I've learnt to do it is I just get a wood yard to cut all the pieces. You make up a plan on a piece of paper to scale of what an 8 foot by 4 foot sheet of plywood, how all the little pieces that you're going to need will tessellate together. And I think it's the kind of mind that I've got kind of lends itself to 3D visualising stuff. I always told I should really have been something like an engineer, because I've got an engineer's mind. It just didn't work out that way, but I can visualise almost like an exploded diagram of every bit that I need and how they fit together in my head. So I got all these bits cut, and it just meant that I could build this very, very quickly. But you can see the method of construction there. But there are companies that you can buy a ready-made baseboard from. And if any of you watched Great Model Railway Challenge, the baseboards that were used in that came ready-made from a company. The actual baseboard just would rock up, and you were ready to go. And you can buy these things. They're not necessarily cheap, but if you despise doing the woodwork, then it is money well spent. But to go back to Paul Tyre, greatest respect for him. His workmanship is amazing, and I just can't replicate that. Some people can, but I can't. So I look with a total degree of awe on people who can build to that kind of level. But I don't think that it detracts from anybody who can't, who finds other ways round it. In my case, I tend to kit bash. I use ready-made bits and pieces and put them together in a way that the original designer of the kit never really envisaged. Let's have a look at some more of the comments that are coming in. Robert Cooney, it's 12 noon here. What time is it here? At the moment, it's 11 minutes past 7 in the evening. We're in the GMT time zone here, so this is sunny Britain. Actually today has been very sunny. I went on over to Hatton's today. I took the Volvo out for a shakedown. It's not been out in a week, but I've had some trouble with the inlet air. No, I keep calling it that. No, it's the idle air control valve on it, and I managed to obtain from a scrap car in a scrapyard its idle air control valve. So I was that in the boot, and I was on my way to Hatton's. I'd cleaned the original one that was on it, and I thought maybe that would fix the problem. It didn't. I ended up on the hard shoulder of the road, changing the idle air control valve for this other one, which, as it turned out, perfect. The car now runs better than it has done for years, and it only goes to show that if you, with a lot of these things, if you can narrow down what the problem is, the fix is often very, very easy. But the car itself was behaving erratically. The engine speed was, so it was revving on its own up to just under 3,000 RPM, and then dropping back to 1200 RPM, and then occasionally it would sit at 1500 RPM, whereas it's supposed to idle at 800 RPM. So it was affecting the emissions, it was affecting the engine braking, and it was just making it a nuisance to drive. It's also affecting the fuel economy. So fixed that, took it for a nice long drive. Hatton's is about I reckon it's probably about 50 to 55 mile round trip. And I picked up a load of bits and pieces. In fact, later on, I shall be, just give me a moment to change the view. Oh, no, wrong button. So a little bit later on, mystery object. I bought mostly DCC chips. Okay, it's something I've got into, DCC chipping, especially sound fitting locomotives, and doing a lot of improvising, and I'm quite enjoying it. But don't neglect the other bits and pieces, so I'll be opening that up in a bit. Where were we? I've lost my train of thought here now. Yes. Meanwhile, back on the ranch. See, look at this. I found a picture. I know every week I say this and people go, what are you talking about? And I think it's a sort of a quote from Bonanza. It's a kind of a lazy screenwriter's thing. You see it in books as well. It's probably, the meme is meanwhile back at the ranch because of Bonanza. But you see it in lazy writing where it's sort of like, and then unicorns. Let's go back to this. But, what was I talking about? I was reading some of your comments. Robert Cooney, beautiful work. Thank you very much. Top height, your model railway is very realistic. Thank you. I've had a lot of practice over the years. You might look at me and think, oh gosh, she's not very old. She is. You might be looking at me and going, oh my God, you've not weathered well, love. But in which case, to you. I've had a lot of practice. I've been building model railways for about 20 years. So lots and lots of practice. And one of the things which I found very, very important to me, see, when I started, the internet wasn't really a thing. It existed. I first got on the internet when I was at university in 1997, and it wasn't anything like the internet that we all know and love now. No, I was lucky at university. We had a 1 megabit connection from the computer room, so theoretically, if nobody else was in there, you could get 1 megabit, 10 base T, if any of you techies out there know what that is. And there was no such thing as mail order, really. I think the closest you got was things like Hatton's had an AOL email address, and that was mail order in the 1990s. Most companies didn't have an internet presence, but what it meant was there was no, there were search engines. Google didn't exist. Imagine that, an internet without Google. Used to use Alta Vista, Lycos, Ask Jeeves, that was a bit of a cheesy one, Yahoo, D827 Kelly, I remember such days, then going home to 56 kilobits per second modems, all slower. I had a 33.6 kilobits modem at home. So what my dad had, an old US Robotics one, and it was like listening to paint dry, trying to surf the internet. On that, after you'd had a 1 megabit connection at university, but sign of the times. I remember eBay being there, but eBay was it was a bit amateur. I liked it actually, because it was people who were just like, I've got this junk and I want rid of it. I'm not here to gouge you, or it wasn't seen as this money. I'm going to screw you all for as much money as I can. And you could genuinely get some interesting stuff because people were just clearing their loft. It was like a car boot sale. Now it's become horrible, far too commercialised. Everybody, you know, it's like everything that must be worth money, and I'm going to screw people for as much money as I can. No, back then you could buy things literally for pennies. It was great. So it's like one big charity shop in a way. It was great. I remember Amazon starting up, and everybody said, "Oh, it won't succeed." It did. But Amazon weren't the only one. I remember DVD Plus when DVDs first turned up, and there was all these different things like Amazon that specialising in certain things. I don't remember any specifically for model railways, but I can remember there was DVD Plus, and their specialist area was DVDs, and then there was Amazon, whose specialist area was books, and then there was you had loads of computer places, things like there was Scan Computers and Eclipse Computers, and it was just computer stuff. And then there was a company called Fig Leaves, and all they did was underwear. You couldn't buy anything else from them, but it was underwear. And eventually Amazon cottoned onto this thing that if they put all these things together like one big online supermarket, they became the one-stop shop. But anyway, oh no, that's the wrong picture. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, let's have a look at some of your comments. Leslie Gilpin, I could never achieve the detail on modern models on my end scale. Oh gosh, see my eyesight. It's like, hey kids, something to look forward to. Your eyesight might be really good at the moment, but it won't always be. You know, I used to have like really good vision. I used to be able to read. I'd sit in the back of class and read the blackboard at the front. Yeah, blackboard, remember them? It's like a whiteboard, but messier. Also, it's black instead of white. And you don't get nice smelling pens, just dusty chalk. But I used to be able to sit at the back and read all that stuff. Not a problem whatsoever. I had pinpoint sharp eyes. Now I'm really struggling trying to look at things close up. I can see, you know, like when I'm DCC chipping stuff, I can see there's wires there, but you know, there's no clarity with it anymore. So really struggling. So yeah, kids, that's what you've got to look forward to. Yeah, when I was your age, I could see really well as well. I also thought I was indestructible and would live forever. Well, yeah, still working on the living forever. Indestructible? No, I've broken a few bones in my time and discovered you don't heal as quick when you get to my age. Yeah, I remember skinning my knee and being straight back on the bike, not giving a toss. D827 Kelly, try surface mount soldering. No, see that's another area, soldering. And it's something that if you have a friend who is good at soldering, you need to keep them in your good books, because there's good soldering, there's bad soldering, and there's not able to solder. And I'm in the bad soldering camp. I no way could I do stuff like surface mount stuff. I can kind of blob solder stuff together. I'm very messy, not neat at all, but I can kind of muddle through the simple stuff. But people who can like pristine, perfectly, neatly solder stuff together, and it's like on almost a microscopic level, you know, we salute you, because that is one hell of a skill. And if you have that skill, then there are people in this hobby who will be your bestest friend. You can make a lot of money out of doing that. And again, it comes back to what I was saying before. If you don't enjoy doing it, get somebody else to do it. Mark Jakes, hi from a very snowed in Seattle. Washington State, WA. Never quite worked out in America. The abbreviation for the states sometimes aren't quite as clear as you might think. But yeah, you've got a lot of snow over there. There's some places, is it like Wisconsin, Missouri, North Dakota as well, which is actually noted for being quite cold at the best of times. Minus 50 with the wind chill. I've seen some photographs online of like the cistern on somebody's toilet frozen like a brick, and people's walls, you know, where you might have a leak. You know, they don't have a leak, but where you get a wet patch with a leak, and so they're getting frost patches, but there's no pipe in the wall that's burst or anything. It's so cold. You can't, I mean, that level of cold. I mean, the coldest I've ever been in was probably about, I remember one year getting down to about -16, -18, and that was bad. But to get down to like -50, oh, that would be, it would just hurt to breathe. I mean, I've been in a blast freezer cold store, and I remember breathing in, and all of the moisture in my nose just froze. So you end up, it's like having snow in your nose, and it hurts to breathe. It's, you know, you very quickly feel the pain. So the people in the States at the moment, you have my sympathies. Let's have a look. The real huggable panda. Hello, Jenny. Well, hello to you too. Good to have you along. Leslie Gilpin. Hey, I'm 61 and wear bifocals, but running an 18-car train makes N scale worth the effort. Yeah, I guess it's one of the big advantages. The smaller scale you go, the more you can fit in a space. And N gauge is something that if you want prototypical length trains, it's a lot easier to fit that in. But the flip side of that is if your eyesight is not quite so good, excuse me, it's very fiddly to work in such scales. I mean, I've started dabbling in O gauge, and my father, you know, we've always been 00 modelling, collected Hornby 00, but he's now discovered O gauge, and he likes it because it's easier to see everything. Ham Shackleton. Hi, Jen. I can solder well, but I can't even see surface mount stuff these days. Yeah, I hear you. You have my sympathy. It's weird, isn't it? You know there's something there. You're looking at it, and you're like, I know there's something there. And the most heartbreaking thing is you know that 10 years previously you could see it with pinpoint accuracy. And I've actually found, I mean, I'm short-sighted. And I've been short-sighted since secondary school. I think first year secondary school was when I first started having to wear glasses. And they were a lot weaker than these. And I only ever used to wear them to see things like the blackboard. And then, you know, as I got older, I needed them for driving, watching television. And now I just wear them all the time. I couldn't exist. I mean, like, I'm sitting here now. I can see the stuff there. I can't read any of the comments on the screen. And it's what, it's, you know, arm's length away. Without my glasses, I can see this text there. It's just a blur. But I'm finding that, you know, varifocal, bifocals, isn't that where you're sort of long and short-sighted at the same time? Which is, it's most peculiar because somebody said to me, like, oh, you become more long-sighted the older you get. So logically, that would mean that if you started out short-sighted, you should pass through 20/20 vision. Oh, no. No. Nature doesn't let you do that. It doesn't give you the smug satisfaction of briefly having 20/20 vision again. No. It just screws with you and makes everything out of focus. Andrew Johnson. I'm also battling with my eyesight at times. At the moment, I think I'm moving from 00 to O. Yeah, I must admit, doing O gauge in the garden, I love O gauge, but it does worry me. In 20 years' time, am I going to look at O gauge and struggle to see bits and pieces in the same way that I'm starting to struggle with some of the smaller little bits of detail with 00? But the ready-to-run stuff in O gauge at the moment is brilliant, I have to say. Daypol has really shaken up the market. And when I was at Hatton's today, you know, just having the run out to run in the new idle air control valve in the main, I thought, yeah, I'll go to Hatton's. It's a nice round trip. And they had some of these O gauge locomotives in the cabinets, and they had, I think it's Helgen, a 260, I think it's some kind of mogul, a Great Western Railway mogul. Oh, that looked gorgeous. But the price tags, they're not as much as they used to be. But the Daypol stuff, you can pick up a Daypol Class 8 or a Terrier for about 150, or the Ginty as well, they do. And the Daypol prices really have made O gauge accessible. Ron Stanbridge, Ron Stanbridge. How to use a head magnifier now? It gets frustrating to do double O and the garden railway, but still fun. Now I'm in my 60s. Yeah, I know what you mean. My grandfather, before he lost his sight, he used to make models. He would scratch build them from scratch, radio controlled boats, and he'd make the proper clinker built hulls and all sorts. It was really we'd just go out and buy bundles of balsa wood and sort of whittle these bits out of it and paint them lovingly, and they were just works of art. But he had one of those head magnifiers, and then unfortunately he had retinal bleeds and went blind, which is something that worries me a little bit, because does it run in the family? I'm gonna have to watch out for that. So the real huggable panda, you will have to move up to a real train so you can see it. Actually, don't jest. If money were no object, I think, if I won the lottery tomorrow, which is a bit of a far-flung thing, because at the end of the day, that would involve having to actually play the lottery to win it. But, I think the idea of buying 2 or 3 miles of disused railway line, an old station, and relaying that track and getting, buying something like a Class 8 or a Class 3 or a Class 4, a little shunting locomotive and some wagons, and playing trains in full size, I'd go for that. I really would. You'd have to be careful, though. If you derailed it on a piece of bad track, that'd be a bit of a pain, wouldn't it? How do you re-rail something like a Class 8 shunter? What do they weigh? About 30, 40 tons? You can't just lift it up and plonk it back on the track. But yeah, a real train, that would tickle my fancy. D827 Kelly, electronic soldering isn't so bad with practice and guidance from one who's very good at it. Kind of wish I'd listened to my father more when younger about soldering rather than learning it at 40 plus. I was just never good at soldering. When I was at secondary school, I remember in physics we did electronics. It was A level. It wasn't. It was. We did it in physics at secondary school as well. But at A level, doing this soldering of electronics, and my teacher always used to say, he says, "You know what? You've got all of the components in the right place. I'll be damned if I know why it doesn't work." And I was notorious for resistors and capacitors, and LEDs would just pop. And I don't know, maybe it's my magnetic personality, but I was just no good at it. Leslie Gilpin, you could build something like the old Cadeby Rectory Railway and 1 foot 11.5 inch gauge. Yeah, actually, it is an interesting point. If you go for a much smaller gauge, you can get stuff where conceivably, the wagons or the coaches, you can sort of lift them on and off the track just about yourself. So, if it came off the track, you could sort of and put it back on the track. And some of the locomotives, conceivably a very strong adult could possibly lift it if you let all the water out of the boiler, perhaps, because water is quite heavy. Something that my father and I have to do with his miniature steam traction engines. When you come to load them back up into the van at the end of a show, you always dump most of the water from the boiler, and also dump the water tank in the tender, because there's quite a lot of weight, and it doesn't have blunt performance on the van when you're trying to lug like 20 or 30 gallons of water around with you. D827 Kelly, my father was radio ham and always repairing old sets. Yeah, I must admit, the person who tried to teach me to solder was a bit of a ham radio enthusiast, so he was always tinkering with that kind of things. I don't know what it is. I just can't seem to get the neatness. I end up with blobs of solder everywhere. So I'm told that actually having a really good soldering iron helps a lot, but I do have a good soldering iron and I'm still bad at it. The Mr. P show. We had a derailment at the Helston Railway. One of our garages, one set of bogies came off. Took us a whole afternoon to jack it up using blocks to put it back. Not an easy feat, I can imagine. Yeah. There's actually, it's probably on YouTube. Let me just let's let me see. Re-railing a steam. Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can find this. There's let's just have a look. Yeah, there's let me see if I can bring this up. This is where is, let's see, there we are. So you can imagine, this is not my video, I hasten to add. So, you know, imagine trying to put that back on the track. Yeah, I'll be honest, unless you had your own crane like that you're seeing on screen, or buckets fulls of cash to hire in something, I'll be honest, if you had your own 2 or 3 miles of preserved track that you'd laid yourself and you'd bought a 37 and that happened to it, I think the 37 would just become a garden ornament. I'm not really quite sure how you would get that back on the track. You know, you can't just pick it up and put it back on. I mean, that would be heartbreaking if you managed to do that. But let's have a look. Yeah, Ron Stanbridge. That is, I have a 71/4 high mech, but it's still a problem to do the electric on the loco. It's still hard to see, but we're getting... Oh, sorry, 7¼ inch high mech. Oh, that is quite big. We're getting a steam loco for the railway. All good fun. Yeah. I must admit that... let's see, technically it's somebody else's video, so I'm going to... It just gives you a gist of just how bad it can get. So, let's see now. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, I told you I'd wear this out. Yeah, I think I've worn it out. Right. Wolfie Wolf, up, young Jenny. Hope you are well and that I haven't missed much. No, we started out talking about basically scratch building versus ready to run, and they're like the two extremes of things. You can either build things from scratch, and then there's this. It's not an either or. There are many different gradations on that route, and as I said at the beginning, by all means, buy some things ready to plant, ready to run. If building kits of locomotives, getting them to work is not your bag, don't bother with it then. Buy them ready to run, it's not a problem. If building buildings is not your bag, if scratch building, if kit bashing is not your bag, buy ready to plant, grand, everybody's happy. But see, for me, I couldn't scratch build a building. I just make such a hash of it, it would look naff. I have tried. It failed, but I kit bash. So I will take... One of my favourite things to do is just buy random super quick or Metcalf kits and then cut up all the bits, glue them together in slightly different ways, and you can make buildings that look pretty good, but are actually... they're unique. They're not as per the instructions, but you've got a building that looks like a building, and I find that a really good compromise. Similarly, we talked about ballasting is an area that for a lot of people, ballasting track, they despise it. People find it's like having teeth pulled. I don't mind it. I find it quite relaxing, actually, just brushing all the ballast into place. But there are things you can buy to get around that. You can get pre-ballasted track, that's one way. I've seen this, they're like a little perspex thing that slots over the track, and you fill it with ballast and sort of slide it along, and it just sets out the ballast really nice and neatly. So if that helps you through the bits of the hobby that you don't enjoy doing, good on you. And as I said at the beginning, at the end of the day, it's a hobby. It's supposed to be fun. And if there's an aspect of the hobby that you don't find fun, then there's nothing wrong with taking a shortcut, getting somebody else to do it, buying things in, buying ready to plant stuff, paying somebody else to do it. We talked about baseboards. You can buy them ready made. DH7 Kelly, like you said earlier, we all have things we don't like or are not competent at to feel able, and ready to run helps with that. Yeah, and I think that is the great thing about this hobby, that anybody can make a really good layout. without necessarily needing any great skills at everything. You know, there's something for everybody in this hobby, and I think that's really what we need to sort of take it forth and tell the world, tell everybody who might be interested in this hobby that it is accessible, because you can do as much or as little as you feel comfortable doing. And you can, when I started out, I was absolutely naff at scenery. I made a complete hash of it. But you learn by practice, same as anything else. The more you do it, the better you get at it. Nobody expects to go and start doing karate and be a black belt from the outset. It doesn't happen. You have to work at it, and eventually you reach a point where you're like the Chuck Norris going down there. You are just like, I don't know what that noise was meant to be. You know what I mean? Eventually, with practice, you become the Chuck Norris of karate. But you didn't start out that way. And similarly with railway modelling, when you start out, it's a lot about experimentation. And this actually goes back to what I started talking about, and then got sidetracked out into the deep blue yonder. And that is that my train of thought has been derailed. I'm basically waiting for Zoe to come back so I can have a takeaway. Oh yes, the diet's going really well, but I really want a takeaway, so I'm going to treat her with a takeaway. What was I talking about? DH7 Kelly, have a go is the best advice to newcomers often. Definitely. And when I first started, made a complete hash of so much stuff, but I persevered. And actually I remember now what I was trying to talk about. When I got low blood sugar, I tend to go off on a tangent and then forget what I was talking about. And I've done it again, actually. This is really weird. It's like how allegedly happens when you get goldfish memory, when allegedly you get stoned. Yes. Yes. Where was I? If I start talking about what I was talking about before, eventually I'll get there. Made a hash of stuff, but then the more I did it, the better I get it. And now I've remembered what I was trying to. I'm going to get there in the end. I've always been very unconventional. Back when I started, the internet was like a curiosity of the academic world. So you couldn't go and look things up. And I did a lot of experimentation. And what I actually found was that I experimented with ways of doing things that nobody else were necessarily doing, and we actually got some pretty good results. So, if we go back to, just try and see here. So, this is the culmination of like 20 years. Let me just move this along so we can get back to, there's the model. This is 20 years of unconventional ways of doing things in the main. And you just find a way that works for you. There's no right, no wrong way of doing any of this. Effectively, it's what I have always said all along, is if it looks right, it is right. And don't be afraid to try new materials, new techniques. There's 1,000, 10,000 different ways of doing the same thing, and all are equally valid. And I can remember always being really annoyed. It used to be a thing in the railway modeller. What's that? DH7 Kelly, who has the train of thought crane for Jenny? Yeah, because it's derailed. It needs putting back on the track. But Railway Modeller used to be a real pain, because it used to say, oh yes, and I use the tried and trusted method of ballasting as outlined with the Smythe and Green method in the August 1953 edition of Railway Modeller. And they never explained how they did things. They just assumed you had this limitless back catalogue of all the old Railway Modelers. And I found it very alienating. As at the time I was a teenager, I thought, it's putting me off, and I had to work at getting into the hobby, and I think it's something that the same mistakes must not be made. If we want to attract newer, younger people into the hobby, don't hide the way of doing things from them. Don't make things inaccessible by keeping it as like some kind of massive, great, big Illuminati secret of, You know, how you lay ballast, how you make grass, you know, how you build trees, how you do X, Y, and Z. Don't keep it secret. Tell people how you're doing it. And, you know, because I had to come up with my own methods of doing things. So, for example, the ballast that you see on this, the ballast that you're seeing isn't railway model ballast. That's actually kiln dried sand that's sold in 25 kilogram sacks for doing block paving drives. It's the stuff you brush between the block paving. And a big bag of that costs you about £3. And that's 25 kilos of perfect ballast for a few quid. But if you go to a model shop, you'll pay £2, £3, £4 for a very small bag that would do a fraction of that. I mean, what you're seeing here is I ballasted all of this layout, all of the garden railway, and still had enough left over that my father could then haul away what was left in the bag and finish off a block paving patio in his back garden with the stuff that was left for £3. And, you know, it's an unconventional method, an unconventional material, but it works. And in terms of dyeing the ballast a different colour, what I actually use to make it look oily is bitumen paint that you use for repairing things like flat roofs or car underseal. I dilute it down until it's mostly white spirit, and I paint that onto the track, and it really looks like grim oil in places, or you do it much thinner and you just get this sort of discoloured ballast look. So I use a slightly stiffer mix, as it were, anywhere where a train would theoretically be stood. So you can see there the sidings on the right in that picture are darker than the main line. And you know, where there'd be a signal that a train would be stood at, where the locomotive would sit, I'd make the track look dark. So you can see there, and the nearest the platform that doesn't have the train sat in it on the right, it's quite dark because I made the washes darker, and it's just bitumen paint. It's not sold for model making, but that's what I use because it works. D827 Kelly, a lot of OO gauge ballast tends to look overscale. Yeah. One thing that I found is that in 00, if you buy ballast from shops, I always find N gauge ballast works better for 00, and conversely, if you're working in O gauge, 00 ballast works best for O gauge. So always go a scale down. Yeah, Leslie Gilpin, with ballast, use the stuff for the scale below you are modelling. Yeah, totally agree with you. And I don't know why they sell it like that when they could just bag it up and mark it up accordingly. But as a rule of thumb, ballast that's finer than you need looks better than ballast that is coarser than you need. So if in doubt, go for the next size down from what you're looking at. Brian Long. Hi Brian, good to see you along. You'll have to help with my ballast next time it needs laying. I was disappointed with the out of the jar stuff myself. Yeah, we'll just get a bag of that kiln dried sand. Never buy the stuff from model shops. You pay through the nose, and it's often not the right grade for what you really want to do. D827 Kelly, remember where the toilets discharged on older coaches? Oh God, yes, the streak of poo. Oh God, you wouldn't want to be a track maintenance worker. Can you imagine that? It's like, okay, stand by lads, the express is coming through. You all stand at the side of the track and then get an aerosol, aerated aerosol of poo and wee and, I'm trying not to swear here. Poo always sounds like a word a 4-year-old would use. No self-respecting adult uses the word poo unless they're being filmed. In which case, we all pretend that we don't really swear. Brian Long, flecks of white bits in the forefoot. Yeah, the bog roll. But yeah, no, ballasting, I quite enjoy doing it. I find it relaxing is the best way to look at it. And, I don't know, maybe it's just the way I am. D87 Kelly. So in stations, there should be flecks of white to represent the paper. Yeah, but don't go overboard. In stations, in all honesty with you, it's more likely to be litter. scroats just chuck their litter off the platform. So I guess a lot of it would just be waste paper if you go back far enough. You've got to remember that metal cans and plastic bottles are a much more modern thing. So, you know, going back in the steam era, certainly the Big Four era, it would just be waste paper more than anything else, I guess. And then, yeah, Cheryl Henley, welcome to the Cultural Hour. Yes. Hey, kids. It's poo, but, you know, I normally use a word which you normally use, but you may be offended to know that I use the same word too. Yeah, D827 Kelly, even though they're not meant to flush at stations, there was always one who ignored it. Oh, yeah, isn't there always? Yeah, because there was nothing that physically stopped you from flushing and it just going straight between the tracks. But, yeah, you can imagine that. The little Mr. Whippy in the forefoot. Ooh. Let's move on, shall we? Wolfie Wolf, thank God you said that about swearing, Jenny. I usually have to type things twice to make sure I don't get a ban. Yeah, oh, no, that's... I'll get rid of that. Where were we? Ah, yes, meanwhile, back at the ranch. Told you I'm going to wear that picture out. I'll find a different one for next time. But let's... Oh, it's doing its thing there. Go back. Let's find a different video to put up. I'm just putting a different video up in the background to... let's see, something railway related. Yeah, you see in the... behind the scenes on YouTube, this is... let's have a look. Oh, let's go to Wally, shall we? Apparently this was me talking a lot about Wally. Let's not go to Wally, for it is for my video is a boring place. I'm trying to... Let's have a look. I'm trying to find a video I can just put on in the background. Oh yeah, there we go. Oh, right. I just put this on so there's something, so you're not having to look at my mush on the screen whilst I'm talking. Let's see, D827 Kelly, at least you can't go any lower now. Oh yes, I can. I know some really lowbrow words, but I'm not going to use them here. But that's the thing, I always remember there's an album by the Wild Hearts. It's a group who were moderately successful for you know, they were red hot bottom kicking briefly for about 4 months somewhere in the 1990s, and they had an album that had a sticker on that kind of took the rip out of, you know, these parental advisory contained swearing stickers that you used to see on albums. And I remember they had a sticker on an album that says, "Warning, this album contains words that you use every day, but you may be offended to know that we do too." And it always stuck in my mind. D827 Kelly, only just about recovered from Wally. Yeah, there's a lot of walking, a lot of... it's quite arduous, some of these big model railway shows. Leslie Gilpin, I was sure I saw you at Wally, but you didn't go until the Saturday. Weird, eh? You didn't go... No, I was there on the Sunday. I always go on the Sunday, and the reason for this is because I think it was the Sunday. Yeah, Sunday. I was there all day Sunday. I tend to arrive early and leave late, but the reason I go on the Sunday is because invariably I've got other commitments for Saturdays, so I can't go on the Saturday. But big plug. I'm going to be at Alexandra Palace all weekend. I've been invited along, and I'm going to be doing one of the interview sessions, being interviewed. I've been invited by Lawrence Robbins from the MRC to do some interviews, so I'm going to be there, and it'll be just basically like a live chat where you can go, "Oh, prod, you're a real 3D person." D827 Kelly, usually there both days at Wally. Yeah, what's that? Formidable 38. I've seen the reason I can't find any 16-ton minerals. That's not my complete collection either. But interesting little quick factoid is that every single one of those wagons is a different running number, and I've been collecting them for best part of 20 years, ever since Bachmann first introduced the Bachmann branch line range of 16-ton mineral wagons, and for a good long time I made it my mission to get one of every release that they brought out. I don't do that anymore, but certainly that is an impressive rake of 16-ton minerals. And what it shows is actually why a garden railway is so good. That train looks stupid running around inside the shed. In fact, I have a feeling that train may even be almost too long to fit just within the confines of the shed. But on the garden railway, it just looks amazing. You can see there it's snaking through the reverse curves. And sadly, the garden railway, it's gone but redeveloped now. So what's going to be in its place? Well, what is in its place is my O-gauge garden railway. Still need to do some more work on it. Hopefully, if the weather's all right tomorrow, I'm going to try and get that up and running. But I need to ballast it actually, and I'm going to use some of that kiln-dried sand mixed with cement. Excuse me. And you mix it up in an old Quality Street tin. You just sort of put your sand and your cement in, and then give it a good shake until it's all mixed up, and then you ballast the track how you'd ordinarily ballast. And it's bone dry, so you can just brush it around like sand. But when it rains, or when you sort of damp it down with a fine mist of water, don't just like hose it, otherwise you'll wash it straight out. It then sets solid as a rock, and I use it on the new layout. I'm going to actually use it to level the track, because the track bed is concrete now. I'm going to try and brush the ballast mix under the track, adjust the fixing screws so that I can even out some of the wibbly wobbly bits, and then when it all sets, it'll all hold it in place, is the plan. Let's have a look. Leslie Gilpin, Sunday at Worley suffers from lack of reliable trains to get there. Yeah, Sundays are a nuisance for anybody trying to use public transport. I don't know what it is with this country. I don't know, do they think that we all sort of stay at home and tootle off for Sunday best to the church or something? It just doesn't happen. But it's like public transport is still stuck in the 1950s. But luckily, I drive there, so I'm all right. It's not an issue. What you're seeing on screen actually now is just a little interjection. This is Ruddington on the Great Central Railway North. I did a model railway exhibition a little while ago, and this is Grove Street Yard, my shunting layout. So it looks really nice in natural light. Yeah, Saturdays are nightmares. Everyone tries to rush to the Bachmann return stand. I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't bother myself. The bargains to be had, in all honesty, I don't think you're getting enough of a discount to really make it worth stampeding for it. So I had a quick look at what was left there, and in all honesty, the prices were a disappointment. Yeah, they were discounted, but just not by enough to make that mad scrum worthwhile. So, yeah, maybe I'm lucky. The fact is that I've got an awful lot of locomotives that I've built up over nearly 20 years. So you then feel less inclined, because, you know, why go and rummage in a scrum for another class 25 when you've already got nearly 20 of the things? So, you know, maybe that's just me. Andrew Johnson, I watched your garden railway construction videos as inspiration for my garden railway. Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad I inspired somebody. It's been great fun actually building it. Really good workout. You know, tickets to the gun show. I moved about 6 tons of soil to the back to re-landscape for it, I reckon. You wouldn't know to look at it, but believe me, I worked it out. And then I probably moved a good few tons on top of that into a skip as well, all done by hand. So it was a lot of work. Leslie Gilpin, haha, returning Bachmann. First thing I learned modelling American trains. Avoid Bachmann. That's a little bit unfair, I have to say. I've had some good experiences with Bachmann. Probably more than I've had with... I've had a lot of niggly problems with Helgen models, usually self-destructing, bits of detail falling off. But by and large, I think my only failings, Bachmann-wise, were a good many years ago. I bought... in fact, actually, in the shadows there, you can just make out the 57XX, you can't see it now, it's just off the screen to the right. The 57XX, I wanted to say Terrier, not Terrier, Pannier tank in Stevenson Clark livery. It was a Bachmann Collectors Club model, and you're just going to see it there in the shadow. It's very difficult to see. And the first one of those that arrives was dead on arrival. It was just shorting out. It had a fault in the wiring. So that got sent back, not a problem, got changed out, not an issue. And the other one that I had was I bought a Class 4 diesel shunter, and the quartering, it went completely out of quartering because the wheel, the split axle split, so the wheels weren't on tight enough, and it just locked up. They're the only two Bachmann models that have had to go back under warranty. And I've got a lot of Bachmann models. By the same token, I've had to send back a Hornby Duchess because all of the wheels were far too narrow, so it would physically slip between the track. Oh, we've got hello Fred, how are you doing? There's a cat down here. You can't see her because she's just going to mooch in, and I think she's going to mither me for food. But, oh, wood in the old Fred. That's a cold draft coming through. I'm trying to think. I've had to take an Oxford Rail locomotive back, which, given that it's only my second Oxford Rail locomotive, that's 50% of all of them that I've bought I've had an issue with. So I think it's probably fairly evenly split. I've never had a problem with the Dapol locomotive, but I was just having a look at that. D87 Kelly, avoiding Dapol returns is advisable. Yeah, also DJ Models returns, because they don't give you any clues whatsoever as to what's really wrong with them. So it's like Russian roulette. You could have a locomotive that's almost completely terminal, or you could have something that's got one particular type of fault. They don't give you any clue. And when I was at the DJ Model stand at Worley looking at the returns, I thought, you know what, I'm not going to risk it. D87 Kelly, yes, Bachmann prices are much too much for me now. I cut and shut replica coaches to get EMUs instead. Yeah, the prices have gone stupid. Yeah, Russell Benton there. The only thing wrong with Bachmann is the price. Yeah, the prices have gone up by more than what can reasonably be expected to have been because of rising wages in China. Yeah, true rate wages have gone up there, and you can't begrudge the Chinese workers a pay rise. You know, you wouldn't work for peanuts, so why should they? But it's being used as a mask by some of the manufacturers to jack up prices and increase the margins, I feel, using pay rises as an excuse. But when you work it out, that huge increase in price is not going to the workers. Wolfie Wolf and Leslie Gilpin. But the American steamers are so much more elaborate. Yes, some of them are, but some of the UK stuff is really, really elaborate too. Leslie Gilpin saying goodbye, Jenny. Quizzy Monday has started on BBC Two. Well, you know, you have fun there. D87 Kelly, they are likely to go up again, I expect. They go up every year, I'll be honest with you. They never come down, even when the pound climbs against the dollar. Never comes down. And in all honesty now, I was talking to Tim at Arcadia Models about Bachmann's announced, I think it's the 4th run, or maybe even the 5th run of the Class 411. And the price is nearly 400 quid. And when these first came out, I think it was about 80 or 90 pounds, and it's a 4-coach EMU. And he said there's no point in ordering them. He said, why would I carry them in stock unless somebody specifically orders it? Because he said, I won't sell them. And he's absolutely right. You can have these things second hand for about 120 pounds, something like that. And I keep mentioning it. There's a Holton Model Centre in Bolton. No connection, just it's a model shop I tend to go to. He has so I think it's either the second release, so the A suffix catalogue number of the Class 411. He's got them at the original RRP that they were then, £133, brand new, still sealed in the box. So when they're still out there at that, how does Bachmann expect people are going to be spending, I think it's about £340, £360 to buy it? I can't see them selling. It's just something that, it's not going to happen. I can't see people selling them. D87 Kelly, just get them second hand from Hatton's for a hell of a lot. Yeah, Hatton's had them about £126. You can find them new at some of the smaller model shops for around £133. I really don't understand why Bachmann are trying to do another release and charge that kind of money. I mean, the Blue Pullman apparently did sell quite well, but I can't see the re-release actually doing well at all. You know, it's just one of those things. Let's have a look. Right. Yeah, they are simply pricing people out of the hobby. Richard AREU. Yeah, totally agree with you. The number, because what you've got to remember is that model railways are, it's a hobby. It's a luxury, and it's competing with other things. And I think perhaps some of the manufacturers lose sight of this, that it's competing with, in particular, console games. And I always go to the pile and I hold up there. There you are, console game. When it was new, probably about £30-40. If you want to buy a PS4 or an Xbox One or a Switch game, you're looking at £40 or £50 for a game, and that's what model railways are by and large competing with. And in all honesty, when the manufacturers, a lot of the manufacturers, not all, Oxford Rail, I have to say, is doing a very good job at producing stuff that's still within an affordable range. Not principally wagons, but when you can get the locomotives for about £80 and you compare them with a comparable locomotive from other manufacturers that's like £120, it can only be applauded that they are out there showing up, these manufacturers who've jacked the prices up. But it's a dying hobby because it's not accessible to a new market. And it's interesting, there was a thing on the news about Games Workshop doing really, really well, and the Games Workshop's seen a massive rise in people playing like Warhammer 40k, that kind of thing. And Wargaming has a lot of things in common with railway modelling, and you see people who make the scenery for that. They build and paint the model kits, and lovingly painted. In fact, another area which I got a lot of inspiration from, which is often overlooked by railway modellers, is most towns and cities have a Games Workshop shop. Get yourself down there and have a look at some of their models and look at the techniques that they use, because actually they are some superb effects of painting and weathering, it's well worth checking it out. Making terrain, they make terrain just like we do for the Wargaming, and they've got some nice techniques going on, but they've made it accessible. And our hobby has a lot to learn from the likes of Games Workshop if it wants to attract a younger crowd in. Let's have a look. British market's small part of the problem in comparison to other countries, D827 Kelly. But on the flip side, if you go back to the 1980s and before, if you didn't have a model railway, you had a Scalextric. So basically, if you wanted a toy that moved, it was either road-based Scalextrics or rail-based model railway. The market was there. The market has been lost to things like console games, and that's what the hobby is competing with. And it has to appeal favourably to the kind of people who would otherwise go on the game's console route. And you see kids now, they're like glued, like, oh look, I'll play the latest bling-a-ding-ding game. I don't know, I just made that up. I'm not a gamer, as you can probably tell. And you know, it's that's what we're competing with. D87 Kelly, Games Workshop host a lot of tournaments in their shops, and they only allow the most recent models to be used, which helps sell the products. Yeah, to some extent. It's one of the things which I think they may have changed that a little bit now, because they have made it more accessible. But that was one of the things that actually put me off Games Workshop when I was in my teens. And ironically, I transitioned from Games Workshop Wargaming to model railways, like proper, you know, build miniature reality model railways. Let's just let me just I'm gonna change the video. Well, let's have a look, and come on. Oh, the bandwidth has gone. Oh, wishy-washy. Let's have a look. What else have we got? I'm trying to find another video. I like having a video on in the background, because otherwise it's just a talking head. Oh, it's gone all slow. How are we doing on bandwidth? Is still there apparently. So let's have a look. I don't know, why am I looking at the same? That's weird. Let me just come on, slow. Why is it so slow? Yeah, there we are. Let's have a grand tour of the East Lancs Railway, just because. Ooh, look at that big bubble of water. Let's have a look. Right. Yeah, the British market used to be a lot bigger. It could be bigger again. But yeah, Games Workshop. I was alienated by this. I used to call them tape measure merchants, but it's like, oh, you can't use that model. It's not in the current rules. Or I was like, oh, that model's only got a 12-inch range attack, and tape measure had come out. You're trying to go 12 inches and 4/1000ths of an inch. You can't have that. And it'd be like, oh my word, no. Let's have a look. Hey Jenny, do you know where I can get a 1960s Trying Hornby Flying Scotsman locomotive restored to full working order? Matthew Dunmo. To be honest, eBay. You're going to have to troll through eBay, do a search, and keep searching. Is just, unfortunately, that's how it's going to have to be. D87 Kelly, as a teenager, I used to get extra money by painting Games Workshop figures for people at school. Yeah. Again, it sort of comes back to you know, what I was saying before about aspects of the hobby where, you know, you can pay somebody else to do the bits you don't like. If you're really good at something, you enjoy doing something, it may be a way of almost like a barter system. And it's like, well, tell you what, you're really good at laying ballast. So if you lay the ballast for me, I'm really good at electrics. So I'll do your electrics if you do my ballasting. And you could do a barter trade thing that way. And, you know, it's a really good way of doing stuff. Or just, you know, earn cash. Paul Tyre up in Orkney runs PD models. You know, it's his business. He makes these things to order for people, and he does an incredibly good job. D87 Kelly, the key is that they try also to run sessions to teach painting and such in the stores, but it depends on the store manager. Yeah, I've seen that advertised a lot, and it's well worth going along. Even if wargaming is not your thing, go along and learn the techniques, because it will really stand you in good stead. You know, take along a couple of sprues of Daypole, you know, the cheap Daypole figures, and paint them at the Games Workshop place. You know, it's a sociable thing as well. You get to meet people, and that is sometimes as well really good in this hobby, is getting to meet and make friends with people. Let's have a look. D87 Kelly, the rules were that the figures had to have the relevant weapons in the rules. They change them with each new edition usually. Yeah, but see, then you could play house rules, and house rules always were you're basically using a phys rep, a physical representation for what's in the current rules. So it'd be a case of, you know, my Gene Stealers or my Space Marines, they may not be the current models, but they will be a stand-in for the current models. And, you know, it's a way of, you know, if all sides agree, brilliant. It keeps the hobby accessible. Yeah, DH7 Kelly, it's something model railway stores should also have been doing, but most didn't catch on to the idea. Yeah, I must admit, a lot of the time, a lot of model railway shops don't have the space. Games Workshop places do tend to have a lot more space, and they'll have a big table in the middle for doing the actual the tabletop stuff. But a lot of model shops, there just is no room for that. Saying that, I remember there used to be one in Darlington. It's gone now, long gone, and it was right at the bottom of the station approach to Darlington Banktop Station. And I remember in there they had a model railway that was slowly being constructed. So, you know, if you went in there in quiet times, you could, you know, sit and shoot the breeze with the guy whilst he was building this. It was a small shunting layout, and actually in some respects it was one of the ways that I got ideas for the size and the scope of what you could put into Grove Street Yard. So yeah, I think, you know, maybe I've been, as I said before, I've been to Hatton's today, and Hatton's, their Widnes place, their showroom, they got a lot of space there, and maybe it's something that places like that, they have the space to do it, so why not do it? Keep things accessible. I think it's, you know, it's a good idea. So DH7 Kelly, a friend used to make his own rules each week. Yeah, the only trouble with that is you get people munchkining, which is, for anybody not familiar, munchkinism is where you exploit rules in a perverse way that's against the spirit of the game to munchkin your characters through to being impossible to beat. Let's have a look. Mr. Dreaded 88. I did a lot of World War II military modelling dioramas, etc. Also remote controlled tanks. Now getting into HO scale trains. A lot of things translate. Love the English trains. Thanks. Yeah. And conversely, I love some of the American models. I love the some of the, you know, these sort of backwater short line railroads, you know, where it'll be some ancient locomotive threading its way through city streets, and that still goes on in parts of America. There's I can't remember the name of the place where the trains just roll straight through town on the main street. And there's a few of these little industrial branches where, you know, they look like something out of the 1950s, yet they're still in use today. It's great. Angus's Trains. Hi Jenny, came back from swimming, won't stay long, got school. Hi, welcome along, good to see you back. We're just talking about all sorts of things at the moment, principally about making railway modelling more accessible. Yeah. I suppose, model shops tend to actually be by nature of them quite small premises with a lot of different bits and pieces all crammed in. Yeah, shops near where I grew up, it was hard to move in. I must admit, you know, I think back to model shops in my youth. I remember one in Milton Keynes, when my family lived in Stanbridge, and there was a model shop in the concrete shopping centre, and I remember that you used to have to sort of breathe in and walk sideways down the side of tables. Angus's Trains, which railway is that and what A4? I think that's Union of South Africa, 60009. I'm sure somebody will look that up. I think it's Union of South Africa. The railway is the East Lancs Railway, and this was so that D5054. That's a Class 24 diesel locomotive, Type 2 Sulzer, and that down there I think it's at a 37. You just saw a glimpse of, but this is in the Buckley Wells sheds, locomotive sheds. I got, excuse me, as behind the scenes of the railway, and that's one of the old Manchester Ship Canal. I think it's a Hunslet, one of the old ship canal locomotives. Normally you can't go to see any of this area of the East Lancs Railway, but we got a full-on guided tour off the back of being on Biggest Little Railway, the TV series. One of the people on that, I think it's his brother-in-law, is the gentleman you're seeing on screen there now. And we got an access all areas tour, and it was great. I think there was about 12 of us or so, all people who'd been on Biggest Little Railway. But yeah, it was really nice to see all this stuff. And there's, I think there's a 282 Mikado Great Western Railway coal tank as well further up here. It's one of the ones that's never run in preservation. Chorley Junction is just Diet Coke. That I think is a standard class 4 tank locomotive in the throes of being restored. That's just the frames of, I think that's a 3F Ginty. I could be wrong. But you know, there's just all these locomotives undergoing renovation. There's a class 14 diesel hydraulic just coming up. But let's have a look. Russell Benton, wouldn't you love to stumble across a model railway shop with lots of old stock? Unfortunately, we don't have that many up in Glasgow. They are out there. Most people aren't aware of... I keep giving it as an example because it's local and I know about it, but there are others. The Holton Model Centre in Bolton, he doesn't advertise particularly, but he has a lot of stock. Not so much now, as I've been telling all and sundry. He's started to sell a lot of it. But he'll have Bachmann wagons, brand new branch line wagons for sort of like £6, £7, £8. They're not discounted. That's just the price they were. So like the London and North Eastern Railway ventilated vans and fish vans. He had a whole load of the BR liveried version of those, brand new for £8, because they were just older stock. He had Mark 1 coaches for £20 each, and that was just the price they originally were when those particular ones came into stock. Let's have a look. DH7 Kelly, keeping you in business. Yeah, I mean, I always say I'm not affiliated with any shop, but he always insists on giving me a discount because I send so many people his way. You know, and you know, it would be rude to say no, I can't possibly accept a discount, but I don't ask for it. Matthew Dunmo, hey Jenny, are you going to the Great Central Railway Model Railway exhibition in June? I haven't been invited to it to exhibit for a few years now, and it is not one that is quite a long way away, so it's not one that I'm likely to go to unless I get invited back to exhibit at some point. But a busy person, I have to say. There's so much going on in the background. Dogger Bend Railway, hi Jenny. Well, hi to you too. Dogger Bend Railway, what did I miss? No, just shooting the breeze. The live stream, once we're finished, it goes up as an ordinary video, as best I can tell. So you can watch back to the whole thing. So you won't miss anything. You can go back and sort of catch up from the beginning. Russell Benton, sounds great. Nice to know these shops still exist. Deserve the custom. Certainly, yeah. Another one which always has a lot of older stock, because he does have a lot in stock. Not as much as the Holton Model Centre, but 53A models in Hull. That's always a good one to go to. There's a big 24-hour Asda. Just as you come off Clive Sullivan Way, there's like a flyover. You'll see the sign for Hessel, the Hessel area of Hull. Turn in there, park in the Asda, walk onto Hessel Road, walk down, and it's on as you're walking towards the docks end of the road. On your left-hand side, not far at all, dead easy. And I've been going there for... well, I used to go there as a kid because my grandmother lived in Cottingham, so that was one of our... my father and I's haunts, but certainly that's a great model shop for some of the slower moving stock. What else? I'm trying to think actually. Unfortunately, a lot of shops are more of a dying breed. So there used to be one in Farnworth in Bolton. The Farnworth Model Centre is sorely missed. Unfortunately, the owner passed away unexpectedly, but they had a lot of older stuff there. Chorley Junction, was that a big Fowler 264 tank in the workshop? It was either the Fairburn tank or a standard class 4. I'm not sure which. But it's an interesting railway. I have to say, if you've not been to the East Lancs Railway, it really is a grand day out. Now, normally, the bit where you see me walking there, you can't get down there to look around unless you on an agreed guided tour. But really good. Oh, there's a Class 7 shunter there, up close and personal. I'm just trying to see the number on this. Which one is it? 13. So it's 07013. Certainly, it needed a bit of TLC, but when Helgen eventually bring out a model of this in this livery, I might be quite tempted to buy it, because it's the only one I've actually seen in person. And this was the signal cabin as well at Bury South. Again, wonderful preserved signal box, doing what it was always intended to do. And it does actually, all these levers work. They, control things because it's on a busy junction. You can see the track plan up there. You probably would make a very nice model, but it controls the current junction between the line that used to go to Manchester, now just goes down to Buckley Wells Works, and the line off to Haywood, and then going the other way into Bury Bolton Street Station, and then further north from there. So it's a working signal box, and these videos all go... D827 Kelly, some levers will be spares usually. There's usually one or two, but I have to say, when I was looking closely through that box, there was... I don't think there was any spare, because there were extra functions that box was controlling, which in BR days were controlled from something else, if that makes sense. So I think that there's some of the levers that would have been spare have become used. Carol Taylor, hello Jenny. Hello to you, Carol. Good to see you along. I can hear the sound of... we've got the good hard liquor has turned up. So Magnus Cider has turned up. So there's a thumb. You should be. Let me pause this. It's a bit like, I don't know if pause. There we go. 8, 3. Yeah, I don't know if any of you remember children's television in the UK. In the sort of the 1990s, there was...
Are you suggesting I'm Wilson the butler?
Was it Wilson? I was thinking, geez. But yeah, Wilson the butler.
Does that make you Ed the dog?
Or Gordon the gopher. Was Ed the duck before or after Gordon the gopher?
After. He was the new and improved puppet.
Oh, right. So what happened to Gordon the gopher?
He got sent to Saturday mornings.
Oh, right. Was it Going Live?
Yeah.
Or
Live and Kicking and all that.
Oh God, we get my word, right? Alive and Kicking. Yeah. So was Alive and Kicking after Going Live?
Pretty sure it was, yeah.
Because I remember it was Saturday Superstore before.
That was long before.
I remember watching Saturday Superstore, and then before that, I think it was the Multicoloured Swap Shop.
I don't remember that one. See you later.
Very vaguely. Yeah. Oh my word. Right. Yeah. That's it. Jenna's the cider. So the waffle will slowly become even more waffly. Ham Shackleton. Yeah, you know me far too well, it has to be said. I'll be honest, actually. We're probably going to... Oh, that hits the spot. Oh, all is well in the world. This waffle brought to you by a bottle of Magnus. Let's have a look. You're far too young. Yes, it's Multicoloured Swap Shop. Russell Benton. I think the swap shop, I've got very dim memories, but I don't know if they're false memories or actual memories, of the very, very tail end of Swap Shop before it was then replaced with Saturday Superstore with, somebody Green. What was her name? And Mike Reed, back when he was actually popular, before he went weird. And there was Bruno, was it? Oh, not Bruno. Cheggers. Keith Chegwin was on it, yeah. And they, oh gosh. I do vaguely remember, was it On the Waterfront on ITV was the alternative. No, didn't watch that much. It wasn't very good. Whereas I think Swap Shop competed with Magpie. You're either a Magpie watcher or a Swap Shop watcher. Ah, right. Needs a Gordon the Gopher puppet. D87 Kelly. I did actually meet... what's his name? He's all grey haired now, but he used to dye it. Philip Schofield, and I think I made him smile by saying I always remember you on Saturday morning television. Loved your work, so you're a part of my childhood. So, oh God, right. Just so anybody knows, Game Hammer Classic Gaming is Zoe. She's logged in downstairs. Hello, Zoe. Everything was beige. Yeah, but you remember some on uncomfortable seats. Yeah, and there was a game as well. There was like a Paperboy game, and they had the Gunge Tank, and there was they had like this crow character as well. Oh, anyway, Tiz was after Saturday Swap Shop. Was that before? Gosh, yeah. Hello, Zoe. Go on, you can. Oh, yeah. I think the mouth is drying up. I need booze. Actually, to be honest, I need food. So, I'm going to round this all off to a close. We've had a good long chat. Actually, I'm looking at the time. We're over an hour and a half in. So we've had a good chat about scratch building versus ready to run. We've talked a little bit about prices in the hobby, as we always do. It's a bit like British people talk about the weather, like railway modelers talk about the incessant rise of prices. You know, guaranteed conversation there. Look, it's been great to have you along, and nobody's taken the mick out of my kitty ears. I put them on just to see if anybody noticed. I did draw attention to them at the start, but hey. Cool chat. Thanks for that, Russell Benton. Yep, thanks for tuning in. But I'm also getting warnings coming up on the computer about keyboard batteries low, so I think that's going to give up in a bit. But don't forget to tickle that like button, and you can also catch up watching this on the rewind once it goes up after we've done the... Charlie Junction. A friend of mine has been working on 50015 Valiant at East Lancs Railway. Surprising, actually, I keep meeting people who either own locomotives or are shares in locomotives, and it's a bit like railway modelling. There's more people into the hobby than you'd think. But East Lancs Railway is my local railway. It's a really good railway. I'd love to see them restore some of the other bits and pieces, the other bits of lines. The Heat Bridge branch would be a nice one for them to restore. But yeah, Mr. Dread 88, love the ears. Thank you. Finally, somebody's commented on the ears. But look, anyway, you all take care of yourself. This is me, Jennifer Kirk, saying thanks for watching this. It's always an honour to have you all along for the ride. And also, don't forget, you can leave some comments once this video goes up live. Leave some comments about what you think we should be talking about next week. 7 o'clock GMT on the Monday. We're planning the live chat again. So leave some comments. Let me know what we should be talking about, and we'll try and see this. And I hope to see you all back there then. But until then, I'm going to go away and order a takeaway, because the diet's going very well, and what better way to spur a diet on than have a pig out night, and that's what we're going to do. Anyway, you take marvellous care of yourself, and I hope to see you here again next time. Bye for now.